And today on How Music Works, we're going to look at the Sarabande melody writing at the Theory 9 level. What exactly is a sarabande? Well, it's a stately dance of the 17th and 18th century that we often see in a Baroque dance suite. Dance suites had many dances in them. 4 of them were standard and the others were optional. The sarabande was one of the standard dances. It's in triple meter, usually 3/2, but also 3/4 can be used, and it is the slowest of the dances from this period. Lento or largo are common. This dance originated in Spain and became a processional dance in the courts of France and Italy over time. There is an implied accent on count 2, typically created by having the longest melody note of the measure on count 2 or a rest at the beginning of count 3. Let's have a look at the opening of one of the most commonly known sarabandes. It's the Handel D minor sarabande. And here we see 3/2, and we have half notes on counts 1 and 2 that look equal in length. And then we have a quarter rest before the quarter at the end of the bar. This creates the feeling that count 2 has been elongated and is thus stressed. In bar 2, count 3 is a rest, which means count 2 is heard in our ear throughout the rest of the bar. Bar 3, again, there is a rest at the beginning of count 3, causing this agogic or implied accent, and that happens again in measure 4. This rhythm is an imperative rhythm to the sarabande. Now let's look at a sarabande by Corelli in E minor. This example is in 3/4 time, the time signature more apt to occur on a Theory 9 exam. The bass clef here provides no implied accent on count 2. As a matter of fact, it is consistent eighth notes. But we notice in the treble clef that in measures 1, 3, and 4, the longest note value is on count 2, creating that implied accent. Yes, measure 2 does not have that rhythm, but the majority of the bars do. And now let's look at a sarabande melody writing question. This is a Theory 9 opening, and we can see that we've got one sharp in the key signature. We have a lento marking, which separates it from the minuet. The minuet will be moderato andantino. The sarabande will not be that fast. We look at this and we notice that in measures 1, 3, and 4, the longest note value of the bar is on count 2, and that in measure 2, we have more of a sense of the normal 3/4 opening, but notice that the leap to the dominant of the key actually causes a small accent on count 2 again. So I've just hinted at the fact that our choice for one sharp is G major and E minor. Even though the first note is a G, it immediately goes to an E, implying that bar 1 is the tonic chord, and the last note of this line is a D sharp, so we are in the key of E minor. Let's complete the analysis of line 1. I've put a phrase over the melody, noticing that it attaches from the first note of the phrase to the last note of the phrase, not from a clef to a bar line. I have added in my analysis. The first bar is a tonic chord. I've put it in brackets because it's not mandatory for marks, but it is knowledge that we need to have. Bar 2 is the dominant. You can The next step is, of course, to put in all of our bar lines and our repeat signs before we go any further. Now, I am doing this in finale, and that's why you're seeing whole rests in each of the bars that I haven't put anything in yet. You will just have blank staves at that point. And one more thing before we go into the actual melody writing itself, let's plan our destination points, our cadences. So at the end of lines or phrases 2 and 4, we should have an authentic cadence in the home key. The bass line that I have here in measure 3 of each of those two phrases of the dominant doing an octave leap, and then in the final measure doing root fifth root of the tonic, is a safe and very commonly used bass line. In measure 12, I have the outline of the 5 chord for the half cadence that will need to be there. At this point, the only notes that I have added into the treble clef line are the tonic note for a full bar in measures 8 and 16. Now, when we get there in the melody writing, we might end up moving that down an octave, but even so, I would rather do that than not put in the tonic and accidentally come to rest on the wrong note or get creative and have 4/8 notes and a quarter note in that bar. We want a sense of stasis. And now for our rounded binary. Yes, we jumped down to line 4 of our 16 measure assignment, and we make rounded binary by copying all of measures 1 and 2 as measure 13 and 14. I typically copy the first half of measure 3 and measure 15 and then change the ending to make it work to be an authentic cadence. Usually I know by the first or second note in the measure 15 whether I'm going to be choosing a high tonic or low tonic. I pick one that's accordingly in that same zone, so there's not a lot of range to cover. And in this case, I simply change the F sharp of measure 3 to a D sharp to get the leading tone in my final cadence. I put on my phrase sign. I label this as a cadential 6/4, 5/64-5/3 to 1, and an authentic cadence. And finally, we're ready to actually compose phrase 2. We're going to do this by observing what was happening in phrase 1. Bar 1 was all tonic, so I'm going to do that for bar 5 as well. It is always a good thing to start phrase 2 with a tonic chord. I used the same rhythm and the same contour, but I chose different notes of the tonic triad. I then noticed that when I went from bar 1 to bar 2 in the given, it was step over the bar line, so I'm now going to do that. I want a 5 chord here, and I want it to be a capital 5. Because we're writing a melody, we want to use melodic minor. So I've raised my 6th and my 7th, and it would be an implied capital 5. When I'm going over the bar line again from the 8th note, I want to move by step because it's how the given did it, and also to resolve the leading tone. That brings us to the ending of our melody where we are trying to create an authentic cadence. Doing 3 blind mice or 3-2-1 in whatever key you're in as the soprano over the cadential 6/4 is always a winning idea. And of course, we have to make sure that we put in our analysis of our Roman numbers 5/64-5/3 to 1 and labeling it as an authentic cadence. And now we are on to phrase 3. I'm going to open phrase 3 in the tonic chord again. I'm using the same rhythm and I happen to use the same contour. Sometimes I choose to use an inversion at this point, but I hadn't used all the combinations of the notes of the tonic triad. Bar 1 went G down to E. bar 5 went E down to B. So now I'm doing B down to G in bar 9. And you can see that they all imply the same chord, so it's familiar, but they're all something slightly different. I'm going to make my note, my 8th note at the end of the bar move by step. And this time in measure 10, I'm going to go to the A minor triad. I am creating the same rhythm that I had in measure 2, and I am using the leap in the same spot, but here I am inverting the leap, but using a consonant leap, something that's singable. The A minor triad is outlined, and again, I move by step over the bar line into my tonic chord. In this bar, it happens that if I put bar 9 upside down and do G, B, G, I've got the 1 chord beautifully sitting here. I can move to the F sharp for my 5 chord, creating the half cadence, and I can use the same bass line of measures 3 and 4. Now, part of our instructions is including all of the root quality symbols for this phrase. So in bar 9, it's E minor. We do not have an inversion to indicate because there is no bass line. Bar 10, AM. Bar 11 on the downbeat is EM. There's no bass. Count 2 is EM over G, and count 3 is back to EM. And then we have a B for our 5 chord at the end of the phrase. We now look like we are finished. And now we're almost finished, but we need the double check. It's a good habit to actually check each of the instructions on the question page to make sure each one is finished. Many marks are lost for missed phrasing, missed root quality symbols, or cadence names that happen to be absent. Also check that your leading tones are all resolving, that your range has not passed an octave in a single gesture, that melodic minor is in place for minor keys, and that those points at the cadences with 2 voices have no parallels. And one last thought, how much time should this question take? Initially, this question could take some students up to an hour to complete. I've had a few people take even longer. The ultimate goal is to complete this question in 20 to 22 minutes to allow an appropriate amount of time to be left for the rest of the examination. And grade 9s, guess what? You are done. Now, if you have joined into this in preparation for writing a grade 10 Sarabande, have no fear. Part 2 is coming. I promise that it will be shorter than part 1.